Hi everyone, I'm Shinjingi. Welcome to the 10th episode of the Night in the Woods in Unity series. In this episode we are going to make objects in the scene be interactable. The first thing to do is to create the structure. Go in the hierarchy and create a new empty game object. Check if the position is all set to 0 and rename it trigger enter. Inside the trigger enter game object, create a new empty one and rename it trigger exit. Inside this last one, create a new empty game object and rename it collider. Go in the trigger enter game object and click on add component. From the menu, select box collider 2D. Set this trigger to true, and to better calculate the position of the trigger, move the player where you want him to stand. In my case, it's going to be the mailbox. Go back to the trigger enter and select edit collider from the box collider 2D component. Make the shape of the collider be a little bit higher than the character's head. Put back the player and go to the trigger exit game object. Select add component, choose again box collider 2D and edit the shape of the collider so that when it moves to the left or right to match, it will exit the trigger. Don't forget to set also this box collider 2D to its trigger. In the collider game object, add a box collider 2D component. This will be the actual collider that allows us to stay on top of the chosen object in the scene. Edit the collider shape so that it creates a surface where to stand on the object and set the layer to ground hard. In the assets folder, go into scripts and create a new one, named triggers, and inside it another one named one-way collider. In this last one, create two C# scripts, one named trigger enter child enabler and the other one trigger exit object disabler. Let's open the scripts in the editor and start with the trigger enter child enabler. As you can see, when the trigger is entered, the child enabler method gets executed. This method activates all the child game objects. Instead, in the trigger exit object disabler, when the trigger is exited, the game object in which this script is added will get disabled. Back to Unity, add the trigger enter child enabler to the trigger enter game object, and the trigger exit object disabler to the trigger exit one. Then disable the trigger exit game object. Now that we have created a one-way collider, it's time to make it into a prefab. In the assets folder, create a new one named prefabs, inside it create another one named triggers, and a last named one-way collider. Now select the trigger enter game object from the hierarchy and drag it to the one-way collider folder. In the hierarchy, go in the game object you want to interact with and create a new empty game object inside it, named one-way collider. Take the trigger enter game object and drag it inside it. As you can see, the position of the colliders are all set up, and since we attached them to the game object we wanted to interact with, they are going to follow it when the parallax script moves it. Start the game and check if it works. If, like in my case, see that the collider of the player is not correct, go back to the player capsule collider 2D and edit it. Back to the game, you can see that now it's working fine. You can attach the prefab to everything else by just editing the colliders, like I did with the car. This is all for this video. Like, subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified when the next episode comes out, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy the journey.